If you haven't heard of Minds.com, it's a free open source social networking platform. They recently hosted a daring event in New York City, the Festival of Ideas, bringing together high-profile thinkers from different strands of the political spectrum, hoping to prove that mature dialogue is possible. That mostly happened, though some sparks did fly. You can watch it all for free on Minds.com. I had conversations of my own with several participants, starting with Minds founder Bill Ottman. I asked him why he thinks people are so convinced that rational dialogue isn't possible across the divide.
I think that people have a visceral reaction to speech and ideas that are controversial and foreign. And, you know, the reality is that even in the peer-reviewed literature around censorship and the effect of it, the reality is that censorship overwhelmingly causes increased radicalization, isolation, and even in some cases violence. So, you know, when you see hate speech online, misinformation, disinformation, like, look, a lot of this is nasty stuff. Like, no one's trying to defend that type of behavior. It's not, you know, the best side of humanity, but the reality is that if you ban it, those people then do not have access to other ideas that could counter those thoughts. So what you don't do is put bigoted people into little echo chambers where they're isolated and become depressed. I think that big tech says that deplatforming is protecting the health of the community, but based on the actual data, healthy societies are driven by free speech.
If you're still skeptical about the power of dialogue, the legendary Daryl Davis is proof that not only is it possible, but it might be the only way forward.
I've been meeting with white supremacists. I have led more than 200 KKK members and neo-Nazis out of that movement through conversation. When two enemies are talking, they're not fighting, they're talking. They may be disagreeing, but that's fine, at least they're talking. It's when the conversation ceases that the ground becomes fertile for violence. So we want to keep the conversation going. I like to see people come to the table together and turn all cards face up. A lot more transparency, have more conversations. I'm a firm believer that a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution.
And yet, several people mentioned that strong forces seem to be at work keeping us divided, rather than allowing these conversations to even happen.
They kick people off social media. They're saying they're giving misinformation or false information. Okay, so what? I don't care if someone says 2 + 2 is 5 on Twitter. We know it's not. What is the harm in letting everyone speak? We have this official narrative now on so many issues, and anyone who deviates is kicked off. Alex Jones shouldn't be on social media, and a lot of liberals will think that's fine. I say, even though I'm on the left, let him talk. You don't have to watch him. Let him talk. What's the problem? But then they come back to people on the left. So if you deviate, for example, from the narrative on the war in Ukraine and the U.S. role in instigating this conflict, then you're accused of disinformation. They make up things, they kick you off. What's freedom of speech if people can be disappeared, if their opinions can be disappeared? If we talk about freedom of speech, but do we really mean it?
There's no way that we can start to begin to find solutions to often what are very tough challenges that we're facing as a country, unless we're able to come together and have that dialogue. It is happening almost never in Washington, which is a problem. And unfortunately, you know, too often we see people who are in different camps on an issue and unwilling to even have a conversation. But I think with you know, kind of the narrative and bias that's put out by mainstream media and what happens on social media, it doesn't encourage those kinds of conversations and those kinds of gatherings to take place.
It's all powered by clicks and advertisements, and when that interacts with human nature, which engages more with the outrageous, it creates an inevitable incentive structure that promotes outrageous content on both sides, and that's where we are right now. We haven't figured out how to engineer ourselves out of that.
In terms of both sides, I also asked if left and right is still relevant, or if there's a more useful way to describe today's political divide.
I think sunlight versus darkness, and good versus evil, and right versus wrong. Because there's only one reality, right? This microphone is blue. So let's say you say, no, it's pink, or no, it's yellow. I mean, that's really the tragedy in modern society. It's a tragedy where we don't agree on facts. And especially coming off this, the heels of these Supreme Court decisions, and we're so incredibly divided in this country. We don't agree on facts.
Like choice versus control is one axis. Do you believe that people should have more choices in their life that matter, or do you want to control and limit the number of choices people have? For the food they eat, the drugs they take, the books they read, the sex that they enact, that type of stuff. And the other is a libertarian authoritarian dichotomy, which is kind of similar. Do you believe that individuals should have more freedom to live their lives the way they want, or do you think that way madness lies, so you want to kind of shrink the choices and options in front of people? Once we start talking in those terms, I think a lot of politics that now seems very divisive will become more understandable. Social conservatives and fiscal progressives, they are the people who want to limit the choices that people have. Those are the people who need to understand that there's a lot of difference out there. And the point of society is not to make everybody think the same thing. It's to create a structure and a world where people who disagree on very important issues are able to live peacefully.
So what does that structure look like? One answer is reforming social media.
I think social media needs to be regulated in this way, that they need to be treated as public utilities, like the phone company is a public utility, and there needs to be a guarantee of access for everyone. I would only restrict people who are directly threatening someone or something very dangerous like that.
You have government increasingly saying, we are going to step in and regulate this. Conservatives say there is too much regulation, and they think that that their people aren't getting a fair shake. Liberals say there's too much speech, but the net result, and you see this in Congress where people like Ted Cruz and then liberal progressives talking about regulating content on social media. That's a disaster.
I asked Tulsi Gabbard if there's a way to create more of that cross-aisle discourse in Washington, D.C.
Hold your leaders accountable. Put the pressure on them to go and meet and sit with somebody who holds a different view on an issue, or to get better informed, or to get out, most importantly, I think, to get out of the bubble of Washington and actually get out into the community, get out and listen, actually listen to the challenges that people are facing, the frustrations they have, the hopes that they have, and make a commitment to actually putting the well-being of the people first, ahead of politics or money or greed, like power, all of these other things that too often rule the agenda and the decisions that are being made in Washington.
So do you have plans to run again?
No plans right now.